The smell hit me first. Burned coffee and something sharper underneath it, like the beginning of a fight. I was 6 months pregnant. My lower back had been screaming since the breakfast rush, and table 7 had been running me since noon. Not the man in the expensive suit at the corner booth, though. He had ordered coffee and a slice of apple tart 40 minutes ago and had not once asked me for anything else, had not caught my eye even when the lunch crowd thinned, and the restaurant grew quiet enough that I could hear the ice machine clunking 2 rooms over. He read nothing, scrolled nothing, simply sat with his hands around his cup and his gaze moving around the room in that slow, methodical way that takes in everything without appearing to notice anything. I had waitressed long enough to recognize that kind of attention, the kind that belongs to a man accustomed to being the most informed person in any room he enters, and I told myself it was irrelevant because the problem was not him. The problem was the other man at table 7, the one who had been there 40 minutes, ordered only water, and had a way of leaning forward in his chair like whatever he was about to say was going to cost me something. His name was Gary. I did not know that yet. I just knew he had a Rolex and a smile that stayed 1 second too long after he stopped speaking, and he had been waiting patiently for my mentor to disappear before he asked me again to look at the paper sitting on the edge of the table between us. I told him I did not sign things without reading them first. He said I had been reading it for 3 weeks, and it was time to stop stalling. I said he was welcome to leave me a number, and I would have someone look it over. He said that was not how this worked. I asked him to explain how it worked, because from where I was standing, it looked like a man trying to pressure a pregnant woman into signing a document she did not understand while she was trying to do her job. My voice came out steadier than I expected. The restaurant had gone very quiet. I did not realize how quiet until I heard my own heartbeat. I felt the baby shift, a slow roll, her version of turning over in her sleep, and I pressed my palm flat against my side for just a second before I straightened up and kept looking at him. Gary's smile drained somewhere else. He said, "The boss won't be happy when he hears you refused." I said, "I don't know who that is." I said it without flinching, because I had spent 6 months practicing not flinching. I picked up his empty water glass and turned to carry it back to the station. That was when I became aware of being watched, not the drifting, half-curious gaze of the other diners, but something deliberate and still, like a door you do not see until it is directly in front of you. I turned my head. The man in the corner booth sat absolutely still, his cup suspended halfway between the table and his mouth. When my eyes met his, he did not look away. He set the cup down, slowly and precisely, the way someone moves when they are choosing each action carefully. The silver clip my grandmother gave me, crescent-shaped, pinned above my left ear, caught the overhead light as I turned, and I became aware of it in a way I never usually was, like a sound you hear for the first time, even though it has always been there. Gary pushed his chair back. The scrape of it was loud in the quiet room. I could hear my own breathing, and in my peripheral vision, the man in the corner booth began to rise. He did not cross the room. That was the strange thing. He stood, and my heart lurched, and then he simply walked to the counter, flagged the hostess, and asked for the dessert menu. I watched him do it. The hostess practically stumbled over herself, getting him the menu. He took it, sat back down, ordered something I could not hear. Gary was gone, I realized. His chair empty. The table cleared of everything but his water glass and a folded $50 bill that had not been there before, which meant he had left it quickly and left it intentionally. I went to clear the table and found the bill sitting over a folded slip of paper, blank on the back. On the front, written in blue ink, "Next time, be smarter." My hands started shaking, not from fear, from something colder and steadier, like the particular anger of someone who has just realized how long they have been underestimating a situation. I had seen notes like this before, always on the 15th, always tucked into the fold of a receipt my manager slid under the register without comment. I had never asked what they were. I had told myself it was his business. Now I was beginning to understand that there was no good position to have been in. Asking would have been wrong, and staying quiet was wrong, and the only difference between them was which kind of wrong came with consequences. I slipped the note into my apron pocket and said nothing. I finished my shift. The evening crowd came in, and the restaurant got loud, and I moved between tables with my feet aching and my back complaining, and the small particular weight of a secret I had not asked to carry. The man in the corner booth stayed through all of it. He ordered a second coffee, then an early dinner. He was still there when I clocked out at 7. I told myself this meant nothing. Wealthy men with nowhere immediate to be ate at restaurants for hours, and it was not unusual. What was unusual was the way the four-top nearest him had emptied out when he arrived, even though the restaurant was full, and the way the other server on my section had wordlessly rerouted herself around his corner for the entire evening, as if there were a boundary there, invisible but understood by everyone except me. I told myself I was imagining things. I collected my tips and my jacket from the break room. When I came back through the floor to leave, the corner booth was empty. But on the table where his coffee cup had been, there was something small and white. I crossed the floor. A card, matte white, heavier than normal cardstock, nothing printed on the front. I turned it over. A phone number, handwritten in the same deliberate ink. No name, no title, just 7 digits. I stood there holding it for a moment, with the restaurant noise becoming background and my heart doing something I chose not to name. I tucked it into my coat pocket. I walked out into the November cold. I did not look back. I did not call. I put the card in the pocket of my winter coat and told myself I would throw it away in the morning. And then morning came and I did not. And 3 days passed and I still had not called, and I stopped thinking about the card. I thought about the note instead, the one that said next time, be smarter. And I thought about the 3 months of 15th of the month visits my manager had never explained. On Wednesday morning, before my shift, he pulled me aside. His face was doing the particular kind of nervous that means a decision has already been made and the conversation is just the delivery. He told me I needed to cooperate. He said it was complicated and he was sorry, but the restaurant had obligations it could not afford to ignore. And the best thing I could do was meet with the man when he came back and sign whatever he brought. I said, I am not signing something I do not understand. He said, Nora, just my name. The way people say it when they mean. Please do not make this harder than it already is. I went to work. At noon, Gary walked back in. He had a different man with him this time, younger, standing slightly back and to the left in a way that was meant to look casual and was not. Gary sat at table 7, his usual, apparently. I brought water without being asked, because this was my table, and I was not going to let fear make me forget how to do my job. Gary smiled. Glad you're still here. I was worried. I asked if he was ready to order. He said he would like to discuss the paperwork. I said the kitchen special was chicken piccata, and he could start with soup. His smile tightened at the edges. He produced a thicker version of the document from inside his jacket and slid it across the table. I took a step back. His companion moved into the aisle. I reached into my apron pocket for the crumpled slip of paper I had been carrying since last Tuesday, the one with $1 amount written in red ink on the back of a register receipt, which I had been meaning to show my manager all week and had not found the nerve to, because showing it meant admitting I had been sitting on information longer than I should have. Gary's hand shot out before I had it fully out of my pocket. His fingers closed around my wrist. Not hard enough to leave a mark, hard enough to communicate that he could, if he chose to. He said, don't. I said, let go. Neither of us moved. And then the ambient sound of the restaurant shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a slight change in the way noise fills a room, the way it does when something enters it that changes the air. I looked toward the corner booth. He was there. Same suit, different day, the same absolute stillness. His eyes were already on Gary's hand around my wrist. Gary felt it before he turned around. He let go. He straightened his jacket, folded the paperwork back inside his coat without another word, and walked out. His companion followed without looking at me. I stood by the table with the restaurant noise flooding back in and my wrist pressed against my apron. When I looked at the corner booth again, the man had left exact change on the table and was walking toward the door. He did not look at me. By that evening, 2 men in black suits were parked outside my building. I went downstairs at 11:30 at night because I could not sleep. I could see the black SUV from the stairwell window on the 2nd floor. Engine off, lights off, visible the way things are visible when you are already looking for them and have made your peace with what you will find. I had spent 3 hours telling myself I was being paranoid, that I was a 27-year-old pregnant woman with no enemies, just a job at a restaurant that had gotten itself into something complicated before I arrived. At 11:30, I stopped lying to myself. I went down and knocked on the passenger window. It lowered. The man inside looked at me with the patient, slightly tired expression of someone who had been told to expect exactly this. He said nothing. I said, "Who sent you?" He reached into his jacket pocket and handed me a card. Matte white. Same weight as the others. Same handwriting. Same 7 digits with no name attached. "I already have one of these," I said. He rolled the window back up. I stood on the sidewalk in my coat over my pajamas for a long time before I went back upstairs. I sat on my couch and held both cards side by side and tried to decide what the presence of those men meant. Whether it was protection or something more complicated than protection, whether the difference even mattered from where I stood. I fell asleep at 2 in the morning without deciding. What woke me was not an alarm, but an email notification at 7:43 from my building's property management company, confirming receipt of payment for 2 months' arrears on my account. I read it 3 times. My rent was paid. I had not paid it. I did not have that money, not the way the email meant it, clean and immediate. I had been managing the overdue balance with a calendar and a very patient landlord, and the particular skill of someone who has learned to negotiate grace periods. I sat with my phone in my hands and felt relief before I felt anything else, and then I felt what I had been afraid of feeling, which was gratitude, and gratitude meant debt, and I had spent 8 months being very careful not to be in anyone's debt. I called the management company. They said the payment had come through a third-party property service, and they could not give me the name. That afternoon, my manager called to say someone had come by after closing and covered a week of daily specials for the staff, that it had all been settled quietly, and the man had not left a name and had not asked for anything in return. He said it in the tone of someone who did not know whether to be relieved or frightened and had landed on both. I arrived early for my shift. The corner booth had a coffee on the table when the kitchen was not even open yet. Still warm, like someone had been there minutes before and simply left. I sat down across from it and stared at it. Then I heard the door, and he came in and sat across from me like this was the most ordinary thing, like we had done this before, like there was no version of this that required explanation. "Why are you doing this?" I said. He looked at me steadily. "You didn't sign the paper. That has nothing to do with you." He was quiet for a moment. The silver clip caught the light when I turned, and I saw him look at it, just once, briefly, before he looked away. "It has everything to do with me," he said. He stood to leave. I said, "Stop. Tell me who you are." He turned at the door. "You don't want to know," he left. I did not understand what he meant. I thought about it through my entire shift. The particular flatness of how he said it, like he was admitting something and withdrawing it in the same breath. He gave no explanation. He sat with me until the morning cook arrived, then left, and I told myself I would understand this shortly, and understanding would make it manageable. Nothing happened on Thursday. On Friday, the restaurant was full and Gary did not appear, and I began to think, cautiously, that maybe it was over, that one conversation or one phone call or whatever it is men like Dominic do had been enough, and I was about to return to my ordinary, difficult, manageable life. I was clearing the last table of the evening when the back door opened. Gary came in from the alley. He was not wearing the Rolex tonight. He looked different without it, looser, angrier, with the specific energy of someone who has been afraid all day and decided fury was more useful. He came straight toward me. "You talked to him," he said. "Whatever you told him." "I have not spoken to anyone," I said. "You're signing tonight," he said. "Or I'll make sure you understand why it's not safe to walk home alone at this hour." He looked at my stomach when he said it. I reached for my phone. The kitchen door swung open. Dominic stepped through it. He had been in the kitchen, at the back, out of sight, for how long I did not know, and he was there now, moving with that particular calm that is not the absence of force but the absolute control of it, the kind that has no use for volume. "Gary," he said. One word. Gary stopped mid-motion. His face changed. Not fear exactly, but the biological response of someone caught doing something they believed was hidden from the person now looking at them. "Boss," Gary's voice shifted register. "I didn't know you were." "I know," Dominic said. The quiet in his voice was its own statement. Gary took one step back. "Leave," Dominic said. Gary went through the back door. The sound of it closing was the loudest thing in the room. I was still gripping my phone. "He works for you," I said. "He worked for me," Dominic said. "Or he did." I looked at him. The silver clip caught the light when I turned to check we were alone, and he looked at it. That brief glance, then at me. "We need to move you tonight," he said. "For how long?" He did not answer right away, which was its own kind of answer. I untied my apron and folded it over my arm. I thought about the rent, about the coffee left warm on a table before the kitchen opened, about the card with a phone number and no name. "I don't know who you are," I said. "Last name." He held the door open. He did not answer. The apartment was on the 4th floor of a building I had never seen, on a street I could not have named, with a view of the river that was almost beautiful if I had been in any condition to notice beauty. It was ordinary in a way that unsettled me. The couch the right height, the kettle already on the counter, the blankets soft in that specific way that suggests someone chose them with care. Nothing about it suggested anything other than that it had been prepared for a person to be comfortable in. I sat in my coat with my bags at my feet and listened to the city sigh and told myself I could leave whenever I wanted to. One of Dominic's men was in the hallway. I had not asked his name. I sat without sleeping for a long time, which was not unusual. Sleep had been a negotiation since month 4, a series of positions and pillows and abandoned compromises, but tonight I could not quiet my own thinking long enough to try. I was frightened. Not of the room, not of Dominic, who had ridden with me in silence and asked once if I was warm enough, and once if I needed to stop for food, and had not asked anything else. I was frightened of myself, which is the more complicated kind of fear. I was starting to trust him. I could feel it the way you feel a tide going out. Not dramatic, just a slow absence of resistance where resistance used to be, and that terrified me more than anything Gary had said or done. 8 months of handling things alone, of knowing exactly what I was carrying, and having organized my whole life precisely around the weight of it, and the thought of letting someone else into that structure felt like the beginning of something I could not take back. The baby kicked. Hard, not her usual flutter, but a real deliberate push that moved visibly through my side, and I gasped before I could stop myself. Dominic was at the window. I had not noticed him move there. He turned. "Do you need a doctor?" "No," I said. "She does this." He looked at me. I realized what I had said. I had not said she allowed to anyone. Not my mother during our stilted weekly calls, not my doctor who had told me and waited for a reaction I did not give her. "She," he repeated, not a question. just the word settling into the space between us. "I haven't told anyone that," I said. He turned back to the window. I pulled my knees up as much as 6 months would allow and looked at the river and thought about the last 8 months in the way I usually did not permit myself. The nursing program I had withdrawn from when I followed a man to a city that turned out not to need me in it. The plan I had organized my entire early 20s around, which had stopped being my plan without anyone asking. The hair clip I had taken from my grandmother's dresser the week before her funeral. The one thing I had not sold when I needed money, the one constant I carried. I had pinned it in my hair the morning after she died and not taken it out since. On the bedside table, it caught the lamplight. I had unclipped it without thinking when I set down my bag. Dominic's gaze moved over it and away. I said 3 months. Someone came on the 15th of every month, and my manager handed over an envelope. I never asked what was in it. I should have asked. He said nothing. I said, "You look like someone who has been waiting a long time for something." He did not turn from the window. He reached over and turned the lamp lower. "Sleep," he said. I woke to voices. Not many, one voice, mostly low and tightly contained. The way people speak when they are holding something in that wants very much to get out. I lay still in the unfamiliar dark and listened. Dominic. Fragments reached me through the door. My name, and how long, and then a silence that felt heavier than the words surrounding it. I sat up and went to the door and opened it. He was at the window again, phone in hand, back to me. He did not turn when I opened the door, but his shoulders shifted slightly, which told me he had heard. I said, "You didn't know?" He turned. "No," he said. I looked at him in the early gray light coming off the river, and I assembled it. The way you put together a sentence when you have had all the words the whole time, and only the arrangement was wrong. Gary had not been rogue and freelance. He had been using something Dominic had built. The name, the organization, the particular weight that comes with men who wait outside buildings and leave cards with phone numbers, and he had redirected that weight onto businesses that had done nothing to earn it. The restaurant where I worked, others before it. Month after month of envelopes, all of it running under a name that did not know it was being borrowed. The first day in the restaurant, the reason Dominic had frozen when Gary spoke was not recognition of me. It was hearing his own name invoked for something he had never ordered, something running without his knowledge in his name, and he had walked into it by accident on an ordinary afternoon. The crumpled note in my apron, the dollar amount Gary had reached for, matched the exact figure I had once seen on a receipt in my manager's drawer and not understood. Gary's Rolex was the same brand worn by the men who stood near Dominic. 3 details I had noticed, held and filed away without connecting until now. 3 things that only made sense from here. Dominic crossed the room and stopped near the door, not blocking it, standing beside it, the door open. "You should have called," he said. "I didn't know whose side you were on," I said. He looked at me. "You still don't." I looked back. I did not move toward the open door. He stepped aside from the frame, making the exit clear and deliberate, and I stayed where I was. His phone rang again. He looked at the screen, then at me. "I have to go." He walked past me and down the hall, and then there was silence. I stood in the apartment with the silver clip pressed between both palms and thought about the fact that I had not once moved toward that door while it was open. That told me something. I was not certain I liked what it told me, and I was even less certain that I intended to change it. He did not come back that day. His men were still in the hallway, and I stayed, because leaving felt like a decision that required more clarity than I currently had, and I found clarity easier in a room that was not also mine to defend. By evening, I had ordered food, eaten more than I expected, and fallen asleep on the couch with the television low. I woke to a knock. 2 flat, hard knocks, not polite, already assuming the door would open. I sat up. The hallway was quiet. I checked through the peephole. Gary. He looked worse than he had at the restaurant. jacket gone, hair undone, the specific dishevelment of someone who had spent a day being afraid and decided that anger was more manageable. I stepped back from the door. He knocked again. "I know you're in there," he said. "I'm not here for the paperwork." I did not answer. "He will get tired of you," Gary said through the door. "They always do. The faster you accept that, the better for both of us. Sign the paper, and this is over tonight." I had been afraid of Gary before. In the restaurant, in those 15th of the month visits, I had pretended not to understand. But I was not afraid now. I stood with my hand on the door handle and thought about 3 months of envelopes and a note that said next time, "Be smarter," and Gary's hand around my wrist, and I made a decision. I opened the door. "Get out," I said, "or I'll bring this building down with the sound of my voice." He looked at my stomach, then at my face, calculating whether I had enough to lose that I would stop. "You think he cares about a pregnant waitress?" "I think you're afraid," I said. "I think if you were not afraid, you would have come with more people, and you did not. I think you're handling it badly, and I am very tired of being the person you practice it on. Get out of this doorway." He grabbed my arm. The hallway door opened. Dominic stepped through. He took in the scene in a single glance. Gary's hand on my arm, Gary's position, my face, and something in his expression resolved into a stillness different from his usual one, the kind that precedes decision rather than observation. He said nothing to Gary. He moved between us, and Gary's hand released my arm. 2 of his men came through the stairwell door. Gary looked at Dominic and then at me and said, "With what was left, you will regret." "No," Dominic said. Gary left. The door closed. I sat back down on the couch and breathed and waited for my heartbeat to slow. Dominic sat across from me, and the room was very quiet, and all the careful distance between us, the unanswered questions, the things withheld, the space we had both maintained so deliberately, felt very present and very close. He said, "Gary has been handled. The men are off the building. You're safe." He stood. "This is over." He moved toward the door. Something that had been held in a very specific formation inside me for 8 months shifted. "What if I don't want it to be?" I said. He stopped. He did not turn immediately. I pressed the silver clip between both palms, careful with it. He turned. The look on his face was not the one I expected. He sat back down, not across from me this time, beside the couch, close enough that I could see the small scar above his left eyebrow that I had not noticed before, in the restaurant or the hallway or in any of the careful distances we had maintained until now. We sat with the city sounds coming up through the window and the lamp low, and neither of us speaking, and then I said, "Tell me something real." He was quiet long enough that I thought he would not. Then he said, "What do you want to know?" I said, "Why you froze. That first day, Gary said something, and you set your cup down, and you looked at me like..." I stopped. "Like what?" I said. "Like something hurt." He looked at his hands. He said she was 3 months along. He did not say a name. He did not look up. I did not ask questions, because I understood, with the particular understanding that comes from carrying someone yourself, exactly what that sentence contained and what it weighed, and how long a person can carry it before the weight becomes the shape of them. Said, "I'm sorry." He nodded once. The room was quiet again. The baby stretched a long, slow movement across my whole side, and I put my hand there without thinking. Dominic watched my hand. He said, "What's her name?" I said. "I haven't decided yet." He was quiet. I said, "What was hers?" He was quiet for longer. "Margot," he said. I held that name in the low lamplight for a moment. Names are often the last thing we hold on to, the final piece of something we are not finished grieving. I said, "That's a good name." He looked at me. I looked back. Nothing else needed to be said, and so we said nothing, and it was not uncomfortable. It was the most honest conversation I had had in 8 months, possibly longer. He stayed until I fell asleep, which I discovered in the morning from the fact that the lamp was off and a blanket had been folded over my feet. When I woke, the apartment was quiet and I was alone. And on the kitchen counter was a coffee from the corner place, still warm. 3 weeks later, I was back in my own apartment, a different one floor higher, the same neighborhood, the rent exactly what I had been paying before, the lease signed by me with no conditions attached and no one's name but mine on it. My manager called to say the restaurant was fine, that the visits had stopped, that the problem had been resolved in a way he was not going to ask questions about. I went back to work. I enrolled in the nursing program at the City Extension campus, evening sessions, the tuition covered by a community clinic sponsorship, the only framing I could accept with my sense of what I was worth intact. I told myself I was paying it back through the work, and I meant it. Dominic came by on a Sunday, 6 weeks after the night Gary came to the apartment door. I saw him from the window before he buzzed. No suit, the first time I had ever seen him in anything else. A dark coat and his hands in his pockets, looking up at my window the way someone looks when they are still deciding whether to knock. He knocked. I went downstairs. He was holding 2 cups of coffee from the corner place I liked. He said, "I was in the neighborhood." I said, "No, you weren't." He said, "No, I wasn't." I stepped back to let him in. We walked upstairs and I put the cups on the counter and he looked at the apartment. The books unpacked, the small plant by the window I had not managed to kill yet, the corner I had set up for the baby with everything still in flat pack boxes because I had not yet managed the furniture by myself, and something in his expression went very still, then very thinking something, Natma yet, and then very warm in that private, particular way it had, when he was thinking something he had not decided to say yet. I said, "Stay for dinner?" He said, "Only if I cook." He had not smiled once in all the time I had known him, not a real one, not one that reached. And this was something balanced on the threshold of a smile, something he was standing at the edge of and had not crossed yet. I laughed. Real. The first one in a very long time, longer than I had realized until I felt it. I reached up and unclipped the silver crescent from my hair, the familiar small weight of it in my palm, the one constant I had carried through all of it. And I stepped toward him and pressed it to his shirt, just over the left pocket, just over where the beat of him would be. My grandmother said, "Give things to the people who will keep them safe," I said. His hand came up over mine and held it there for a moment, not moving, just holding. I turned back to the kitchen and pulled the first pot from the cabinet.